Up next in the broadcast, Korea's central bank leaves the key rate unchanged in a move that counters easy money proponents by saying that the current rate freeze for the 12th straight month is enough to support the pace of economic recovery. Has a tragic Sewol-ho ferry disaster kept Koreans from eating out, traveling, and engaging in various leisure activities? The finance ministry says it has, prompting the president to announce short-term spending measures. And international efforts mount to save the over 200 kidnapped girls in Nigeria as fears mount that the victims are no longer in one group nor still within the country. Primetime News begins now.
Happy Friday, everyone. I am Kang Tae-ri.
Thanks for tuning in. I'm Sean Lim. Well, search operations are underway for those still missing in the ferry accident. So let's go straight to our Kim Ji-yeon, who's been following the story closely from the beginning.
Now, Ji-yeon, what we're learning today is, again, calling into question the initial response to the disaster.
Well, findings suggest that some victims tried to escape the ferry right before it went under, and rescuers found bodies in a cabin on the fifth floor that was accessible only to crew members and was initially thought not to be occupied by any passengers. It is presumed that the victims fled to higher locations as water filled up the ferry. If the initial rescue attempt was better handled, these victims could have been saved.
And that's all the more heartbreaking because we have new evidence that suggests that evacuation was not even on the minds of the captain and the crew.
Well, what we learned today is that the first mate of the ferry told authorities that he had called the ferry operators several times, letting them know that the vessel was listing. And during the calls, which lasted for about half an hour in total, the ferry operator did not even mention once the need to initiate an emergency escape for the safety of the passengers.
And the guy that we've been calling the de facto owner of the ferry operator was actually very much involved with the management.
Yes, it was. The investigative team found evidence that the Jongun Marine Company paid Yu Byung-won monthly wages of nearly $10,000 a month and consultation fees for nearly a year. Yu has claimed that he was not involved in the company's management, but this finding gives prosecutors grounds to charge Yu for negligent homicide, just like they have for the CEO of Jongun Marine, and they plan to summon Yu for questioning next week.
All right, thank you, Ji-yeon, for collecting all the pieces for us this week. Well, the tragedy has hit pretty much everyone in the country, and the somber mood has apparently led to a slump in consumer spending.
And to address the rising economic impact of the disaster, President Park Geun-hye and her officials came up with some measures to keep the recovery on track. Choi Yoo-sun has the details.
Since the Sewol-ho ferry accident on April 16th, the finance ministry says a growing number of Koreans have stopped eating out, traveling, and engaging in various leisure activities. The sales growth of restaurants dropped 5 percentage points following the accident, and reservation cancellations have resulted in more than $30 million in losses for the tourism industry. This, coupled with unstable markets and the exchange rate, prompted President Park Geun-hye to address the issue with ministers and businessmen on Friday.
지금은 국가적으로 매우 어려운 상황입니다. 이런 때일수록 국민들의 일상생활과 직결되는 민생을 챙기는 일에 적극적으로 정부가 나서서 대처해 나가야 할 것입니다.
Stressing how crucial it is to steady the recent economic recovery, the president called for measures to soothe weak sentiment. She then asked officials to offer much-needed support for the country's small and mid-sized businesses and the self-employed affected by the current crisis. To that end, the government will increase its second quarter spending by over $7 billion and offer affected businesses a total of some $70 million in financing at low interest rates. The businesses will also be allowed a grace period on their taxes. To help the people and businesses gradually resume normal business activities, the president said the government will have to come to some determinations about the Sewol-ho ferry accident.
다시는 이런 일이 일어나지 않도록 정부에서는 문제점을 찾아내서 바로잡고 책임자들에 대한 처벌과 관련 사항을 상세하게 국민에게 밝힐 것입니다.
President Park also referred to our deregulation drive, saying efforts to root out unnecessary red tape must continue while bolstering regulations related to safety, consumer protection, and fair competition. Choi Yu-sun, Arirang News.
The Bank of Korea kept the key rate at 2.5% for the month of May, but it did signal a possible rate hike down the road. Hwang Ji-hye reports.
Despite government concerns that the pace of economic recovery is not strong enough, Korea's top central banker has made it clear that any future monetary decision would include a rate hike. While adding that it won't happen immediately, the Bank of Korea Governor Lee Ju-yeol said after a monthly monetary policy meeting on Friday that policymakers decided to keep the rate steady at 2.5% this month.
We believe the current 2.5% key rate is accommodative enough to back the economic recovery, and as far as I know, the market also shares the same view with us.
Over slowing consumer spending due to the Sewol-ho Ferry disaster, the Bank of Korea governor says it's still too early to act, but adds that the bank is closely monitoring the impact on the domestic economy. Still, Lee maintained the bank's earlier growth forecast of 4% for this year, which matches up with the nation's potential growth rate. The governor went on to say that the impact local exporters are feeling from a strong local currency, which currently hovers at its highest level in nearly 6 years, is different from the past. Analyst Michael Na at Nomura in Korea also says that Korean companies have managed to improve their competitive edge, like Samsung Electronics producing top-of-the-line gadgets.
Because back in the old days, Korean companies competed on price. But a lot of the products that we sell these days aren't really price sensitive as it was before.
Fighting dangers of inflation exceeding the mid-2% range in the second half of this year, the top central banker said any changes to interest rates in the coming months would likely be an upward adjustment. Hwang Ji-hye, Arirang News.
Over the past 10 years, the Korean wave has fueled a boom in the Korean cosmetics industry as more overseas fans want to get their hands on the products endorsed by Korean celebrities. And it's generating big money. Connie Kim reports.
The Korean wave, driven by Korean pop music and television dramas, has spilled over into the cosmetics industry. The Korea Customs Service said Friday that the export of domestic cosmetics increased 6-fold since 2004 to more than $1 billion last year. The most popular items were skincare products, which make up nearly half of the market, followed by makeup products, including foundation and blush, at around 20%. The rise was also helped by an increase in the number of countries cosmetics were shipped to from 87 countries to 129 nations over the last decade. Most went to Korea's neighbors in Asia, namely China, US, and Japan.
Our brand has in the past mainly targeted the East Asian market, nations like Vietnam and Singapore, but we plan to expand to the Northeast Asian market, including China. The Face Shop plans to continue promoting skincare products such as skin whitening cosmetics, which are most popular to foreign customers.
What's more, Korean cosmetic brands have been using celebrities for their advertisements, helping to boost brand awareness even further. The Korea Customs Service expects exports of cosmetics to rise even more in the years to come, adding that it's a moneymaker for all involved, as the cosmetics industry has a high return compared to investment. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Fresh off confirmation that North Korea was to blame for the 3 unmanned drones found earlier this year on South Korean soil, news that Kim Jongun recently called for an expansion of the program.
Kim reportedly ordered forces in March to utilize the drones not just for surveillance, but for attack purposes as well. That's around the same time the 3 drones were discovered crashed in South Korea. The drones took hundreds of pictures of key military and government facilities in the south, and the North is believed to have flown dozens more back and forth across the border. South Korea condemned the North on Friday for the drone infiltration, calling it a violation of the Armistice Agreement and Non-Aggression Pact. And on to more provocative comments out of Pyongyang, and this time, instead of aiming their hate speech at the South Korean leadership, the target was U.S. President Barack Obama.
One day after North Korean state media referred to President Barack Obama as a, quote, crossbreed and wicked black monkey, U.S. National Security Council spokeswoman Caitlin Hayden called the hate speech ugly and disrespectful. It was a rare, quick response from the White House to North Korea's propaganda.
More winds of change are blowing through Pyongyang. The North Korean regime has a new number 2 under Kim Jong-un. For a look at what the reshuffle may mean, we welcome in our Unification Ministry correspondent Hwang Sung-hee to the studio.
So, Sung-hee, Kim Jong-un recently promoted Hwang Byung-seo as the new number 2 guy in the regime, and this is Kim Jong-un's third number 2 since December. What does this mean? Does this mean, is this another sign of instability in the regime?
Well, Terry, not quite. When Kim Jong-un executed his uncle Chang Song-taek 6 months ago, there were speculations of a power struggle within the regime, but there haven't been any signs of such an internal strife since then. Now, instead, the rise of Hwang Byung-seo as North Korea's new military Politburo chief is being seen as a continuation of Kim Jong-un's attempts to solidify the party's control over the military.
If Chae-ryong-hae established the basis of Kim Jong-un's control of the military among their higher ranks, it seems Hwang Byung-seo was appointed to spread this ideology to the lower ranks of the military.
The military Politburo chief oversees the political and philosophical affairs of the military in a regime where ideology reigns supreme. Hwang's career has been with the Workers' Party of Korea, which means that he's a former party official, not a military man. Now, that's noteworthy since Hwang has been appointed as the military's highest-ranking link to the party. So, going back to your question, Cherry, Hwang's appointment is likely intended to help the regime gain better control over the military, not as a response to any political instability.
Well, it's not surprising to see dramatic personnel changes in this regime, but does this come out of a plan or is it more impulsive?
Well, given North Korea's history and Kim Jong-un's age, we could be, realistically speaking, we could be seeing Kim rule for another 30 to 40 years. And personnel changes are very common in dictatorships. And it's also important to remember that the young leader is still in the very early stages of creating the so-called Kim Jong-un-style North Korea. Officials appointed to key posts by the young Kim, if you look at this chart, like Military Politburo Chief Hwang Byung-seo, Defense Minister Jang Jong-nam, and Chief of Staff Lee Young-gil are in their 50s or 60s, which is much younger than their predecessors.
With the elimination of former figures within the Kim Jong-il era, and the rise of new figures, Kim Jong-un is creating a new structure of people that he will have direct control over.
Now, reshuffles have been much more frequent under the Kim Jong-un regime. We could pin that on the impulsiveness of a young dictator, but we must also take his late father Kim Jong-il's so-called Sungun, or military-first politics, into account. Back then, the military held all the power. Now, the young Kim is attempting to rebalance this, appointing officials to posts in the government, party, and military, and giving them a certain degree of power and responsibility relevant to their positions.
And also in focus is the new foreign minister. And are we seeing any changes? Are we seeing a shift in its foreign policy?
Well, new Foreign Minister Lee Soo-young is a very interesting character because he was believed to be very, very close to the now purged Chang Song-taek. Most of Chang's close aides fell from power, but Lee was an exception. He rather got a promotion to a higher rank. Lee was a long-time North Korean ambassador to Switzerland and reportedly took care of Kim Jong-un when he attended school there from 1998 to 2000. Experts say Lee was likely promoted because of his special relationship with the young leader or because North Korea wants to improve ties with Europe. Now, if it's the latter, the context that Lee established during his years of service in Switzerland will be useful in North Korea's attempts at attracting foreign investment from Europe.
And how is this shakeup expected to affect inter-Korean relations? We're at a very rough patch right now.
Well, Sean, any clues about that would come from personnel changes in the powerful National Defense Commission or the country's United Front Department, which handles cross-border affairs. Now, the heads of both departments remain intact, and another key post that has a role in cross-border ties would be North Korea's Red Cross, and there have been no significant changes there either. Experts say for now, North Korea's nuclear test is the biggest factor that could jeopardize inter-Korean ties.
All right, Sung-hye, thank you very much for that report.
My pleasure.
U.S. State Secretary John Kerry says an American team of experts has landed in Nigeria to help the local government rescue more than 200 schoolgirls kidnapped by Islamist militants.
With more on that and other international stories, we now turn to Paul Yee standing by at the news center. Paul, these militants appear to be taking bolder and bolder steps. How are authorities coping with the situation?
Well, it's becoming clearer to the world that the Nigerian government is struggling to contain the extremist group Boko Haram. And residents of the latest known town to fall victim to the group's attacks are blaming security forces for failing to protect them. Our Shin Se-min reports.
In the latest evidence that the Nigerian government is losing its battle against the Islamic militant group Boko Haram, at least 50 bodies have been recovered in the Nigerian town Gamboru, victims of an attack carried out by Boko Haram. Surviving residents of the town say the death toll is more than 300, while government officials say the number is likely closer to 100. Residents of the town say they were bombarded by an assault that lasted 12 hours and lobbed criticism against security forces for failing to protect them. Most of the bodies found were burned so badly that they're beyond recognition. It's the latest in a series of violent acts carried out by Boko Haram. Last month, they abducted more than 200 girls and young women from a boarding school in the northeast of the nation. That sparked accusations that the government of Nigeria isn't doing enough to stop the extremists, which are blamed for killing more than 1,500 people so far this year as part of their drive to impose Islamic law on the country. A peaceful protest continues in parts of the country.
We want our girls back now. Now. We are not interested in any stories. Not even one girl is enough to get any mother, any parent, any father to stand up and be counted. This is a time for people, well-meaning people, to stand up and be counted in this country. For the sake of...
Experts say if the hundreds of Nigerian kidnapped girls are not rescued soon, they could face a life of agony as slaves or child brides sold in markets across the globe. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Moving on to Thailand, where anti-government protests have spread across the capital city of Bangkok. Thousands of protesters have been rallying in this Friday, 2 days after Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra was removed from office. Though many see the ousting of Yingluck as a victory, they say it's not enough. They're demanding a wide range of reforms and even calling on the caretaker government to step down. The massive group of demonstrators also want to postpone general elections slated for July 25th, as Yingluck's party is widely expected to win. Meanwhile, tens of thousands of pro-government supporters are planning to stage a rally through the heart of Bangkok tomorrow, raising fears of violent clashes. And turning to Ukraine, where ceremonies are being held across the country to celebrate Victory Day, marking the 69th anniversary of the Soviet victory over Nazi Germany in World War II. On the solemn day, Ukraine's acting Prime Minister Arseniy Yatsenyuk said he would do everything to de-escalate the conflict with Russia, but added that pro-Moscow militants must face justice. The low-key ceremony was overshadowed by further unrest in the eastern part of the country, where pro-Russian separatists have seized scores of government buildings. The separatists have decided to push forward with a referendum on Sunday to split away from Kiev. Ukraine's top security chiefs have vowed to continue with anti-terrorist operations to take back eastern cities and stop the May 11th referendum. That wraps up our look at international stories making headlines around the world. I'll see you back here next week.
Hello and welcome to Primetime Sports. I'm Stephen Che. The unofficial fifth major of golf, the Players' Championship, opened at TPC Sawgrass in Florida, and a former world #1 quickly rose to the top with his spectacular performance. That man is Martin Kamer of Germany. He ended the day with a score of 9 under par, tying the course record. He was on point, hitting all but 2 fairways off the drive and putting for birdies on all but 1 hole. Meanwhile, Russell Henley stands 2 shots back at second place, with South Korean Bae Sang-moon sitting comfortably at third at 6 under par. And heading to the pitch, England's Premier League comes to an exciting conclusion this weekend, with the title race to be decided on the final match day. Manchester City sits atop the leaderboard, separated by 2 points from second place Liverpool, which means a win will seal it for the Sky Blues. And due to a goal difference, Liverpool can only lift the trophy with a win and a Man City loss. Final match day 38 takes place Sunday afternoon in the UK. And staying with football news, the upcoming Brazil World Cup has been tainted with yet another death of a stadium worker, this time in Cuiabá. The 32-year-old Muhammad Ali Maciel Afonso was killed in an electrical accident at Arena Pantanal in the central western city. Construction has been halted until an investigation determines the cause. It comes as Brazilian President Dilma Rousseff visited a stadium in São Paulo, praising efforts there. And moving on to baseball. First, in the MLB, the New York Yankees have announced that they'll retire former skipper Joe Torre's number 6 on August 23rd. Torre, a former player and manager and currently a top office executive, led the Pinstripes to 4 World Series titles in 12 years, from 1996 to 2007. And now it's time for Friday's top KBO matchup. The Samsung Lions faced off against the Tucson Bears. Now Samsung won their last 5 and they strike first here. Park Seok-min hits a solo homer in the second. Then Navarro leads off the next inning with a home run of his own. It's eventually 4-0 until Tucson comes back with 2 in the 4th. But the Lions, Park Seok-min hits yet another long ball in the 5th. Choi Young-woo, he adds 1, also going long in the 7th. And Samsung dominates this one 12-2. And looking at the other games, we have Nexen beating out LG 6-5, and Kia taking care of Hanwha 3-2 in extra innings. Meanwhile, Lotte and NC are still battling this one out. It's 1-1. Well, that's all I have for now. This has been Stephen Che. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you back here later for more from the world of sports.
Those planning outdoor activities this weekend should get them done before Sunday evening.
That's right. And let's go to our Kim Bo-kyung at the Weather Center for more. But Bo-kyung, first give us the updates on the conditions in Jindo.
Guys, tomorrow is the last day for neap tides, but underwater conditions haven't been favorable and it doesn't look like things will get any better. On Sunday evening, rain is forecast along with high waves and strong winds, so keep that in mind. Now, shifting our focus, Saturday's daytime highs in Sewol would jump to 27 degrees, and there should be a big gap in temperatures between the day and night, so please be sure to dress accordingly. Now, this sunny and fabulous weather is forecast to give way to nationwide rain on Sunday, so make sure to soak up some sun before it's gone. Taking a look at our current conditions, the nation continues to be under the influence of a high pressure system from the West Sea. This is why we're seeing clear skies across the map. At the moment, dry weather advisories are still in effect in some areas along the East Coast, so be aware of fire danger in these areas. Looking ahead at Saturday's readings, Seoul and Gwangju hit 27 degrees while Busan reaches 21. Moving on to other places, Jeju tops out at 22 degrees while Dokdo and Mount Kumgang peak at 16. Hope you have a wonderful Friday evening, and back to you guys.
And that does it for tonight's Primetime News. Thanks for watching.
And have a great weekend, everyone.